Hey guys, this week I'm going to show you how I made this turkey mount. Stick around. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of BS with AJ. As I said before, this week we're going to be making a turkey mount. Now it's going to be made out of 3 different types of wood actually, and I think they go really well together. The top part that actually holds the fan in place is made out of persimmon. I'm not really sure where to tell you to get persimmon unless you just cut it down yourself. My dad actually came across it. Somebody gave him a board of it because they cut down a persimmon tree, and so I planed it down and got it looking all nice and smooth and everything, and I decided to make something really cool out of it. So that's something that's going to be hanging around for a long time, of course, so I thought that was a perfect project for that. Another piece is spalted oak. I actually bought a big old pile of lumber from an auction a long time ago. It's probably been 2 years or more now. And I didn't even know there was any cool stuff in there that was spalted or anything like that. But it turned out looking really cool, especially for this project. And the third type of wood is walnut. I made walnut beads for the necklace type. I don't know what you'd call that. Before we get started in this video, if you like videos like this, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and consider supporting BS with AJ on Patreon so we can do bigger and better projects for you guys. Let's get started. Alright guys, so we have our turkey spurs here, and basically this is just the shell that covers the bone of the spur there. So, and I know a lot of people, usually I've seen a lot of people mount them, they cut like 1 inch below and above the bone on the spur there, and they drill out the bone marrow and use that hole to put it on like a necklace type thing. We're going to be doing something slightly different. You can actually cut around the spur, this part right here, the shell of it I guess, or whatever you want to call it, and you can pull that off with a pair of pliers if you're careful enough. And what we're going to be doing, instead of doing that, we're going to be using these barrel swivels. I've got size 1 barrel swivels, and we're going to be using these as an eyelet basically. I've got some 5-minute epoxy, we've got some tape to cover up those so we don't get this stuff all over, and I've got some black paracord that we're going to be using as a rope to put these on, basically as a small little necklace type thing, but we're just going to be using it to hang on our mount afterwards. So the first thing you're going to notice is that these size 1 barrel swivels are just a little bit too big. Whenever you go to try to set them in there, they just kind of stick out, and I don't want that the barrel part of the ball or whatever you want to call that to stick out. So the first thing I did was cut off the bottom part of that. So let me show you here. Basically I just cut one of the eyelets off. So what I'm going to do now is we're just going to use that 5-minute epoxy and submerge it down to where those 2 little rings are showing, I believe. I think that'll look alright if I do it that way, and possibly just slightly inside of there. Now this 5-minute epoxy I've got is actually, it's a translucent yellow is what it says. I don't want it to be that color, so I'm going to be using some Hershey's Cocoa Mix just to darken it up. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Why the heck are you using Hershey's Cocoa Mix? But, you know, honestly, it's not going to matter. Once you mix it in with the epoxy, as long as it makes it turn to that darker color, then that's all that really matters, because, I mean, nobody's really going to look at that, and I really, like I said, I don't want you to be able to look through that and see that yellow or anything if somebody gets real close up on it. So I figured a darker, something mixed in there that would make it look darker would look better. So, like I said, we're going to take a little bit of this 5-minute epoxy, we're going to put it in this little cup here, and we're going to be mixing a little bit of that cocoa mix in there to make it just a little bit darker color. And then we're going to be using these, the barrel swivels as an eyelet. So the first thing you're going to want to do, of course, is to tape up your spurs, because if you get that epoxy on there, it's probably going to be hard to get off. So it's easier just to avoid the problem. We'll go ahead and do that off camera, and I'll show you how to do this. Alright guys, so to start this process off, I'm going to go ahead and throw a little bit of this cocoa powder down here. I'm not exactly sure how much it's going to take. I'm not going to be making a whole bunch because I'm going to have to do them one at a time, because I'm going to have to hold it in place. But let's just go ahead and try this now. So I've got that ready. I'm going to squeeze some of this in here. That should be more than enough. for one. Alright, now we use the end of this spoon here. Mix that all together. I think it got a little bit too much cocoa powder in there. It's kind of like chocolate milk right now. Alright, that should be pretty well mixed up. Now we're going to take that, take one of these spurs, and this is the reason we put tape on there. Right here. Alright, now we're going to quickly grab this swivel here and submerge it. Alright, now for the beard, we're going to be using the shotgun shell that we shot the turkey with. So you can get you a razor knife, or I've got an X-Acto knife here that I use to clean up the tail feathers. So I'm going to use that. Just cut that plastic right off. Try and stay as close as you can to that brass. You don't want any of that green showing, or whatever color your shells are at least. Alright, looks like we got all that green from showing. Alright, now to get this primer out, we're going to be using a hammer and a small punch here. And we're going to be knocking it out from the inside. So make sure you have a piece of wood with a hole in it. Kind of line that up there in the right over that hole. There it is. Alright, we got that out of there now. So now we have this hole that we can put our string through. Once we get our string set up in there, I'll probably use hot glue to glue the string in place, and then I'm going to fill it up once I put the beard in there. So we'll come back and do that here in just a little bit. Alright guys, we went ahead and cut us a piece of paracord quite a bit longer than we actually needed. We did that on purpose just because I wanted to make sure I had plenty. So what we're going to do is I folded it directly in half. I've got that small portion right here. I'm going to put it in from the top of that. We'll start it with that, and then we're going to use our small punch that we had a while ago to finish pushing it through. Alright, and then we're going to pull it down to where it won't pull out on its own like that. Alright, now we have our hot glue gun warmed up and everything, so we're going to go ahead and put just a little bit in there to make sure this doesn't come out. Alright. Now, you can go ahead at this point and go ahead and set your beard in place wherever you want it, and you can fill it up with hot glue and just go ahead and let it set in there. So let's go ahead and do that now while we're at it here. So got quite a bit in there right now, and then we're just going to take this, Set it down into place. And you will want to hold it until it cools down and dries, because otherwise it's going to be all kinds of crazy. Alright guys, well I ran over to the lathe and made some real quick beads out of some scrap walnut I had laying around. Now they're not perfect by any means. These are the first beads I've ever actually made, and it didn't take very long to do it. But I wanted to make some. You can actually purchase these, and I'll be sure and leave a link down in the description below. I'm not sure what type of wood they'll be made of. I'll try and find some that are walnut because I really like the way that looks. But the reason I put them on there was to help break it up, so that way your spurs aren't just down here right by the shotgun shell, and that way it kind of pops them out a little bit better. I think it looks pretty good. Now if you had the bone and everything on there, it would probably show up a little better because the bone is obviously white, and right on some dark wood like that it would pop. But like I said, I wanted to try something different, so I did it this way, and I think it actually turned out pretty good. So now all that you have left to do is go ahead and cut your the rest of your rope to whatever length you want it to be at, tie it up or put some kind of fastener on it or something like that, and then you just hang it up on your wall mount. I hope you enjoyed this week's video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and consider supporting BS with AJ on Patreon so we could do bigger and better projects for you guys. I'll see you next week.